Hey, what's up everyone, and welcome to another video. So with Naxxramas just around the corner, soon everybody will be able to get their hands on their new gear, but let me tell you that not all tier 3 pieces were created equal. And that's exactly what we're gonna realize today, because in this video we'll go over the Paladin and Shaman tier 3 pieces, and you will see why you should make sure to funnel all of those pieces to your fellow hybrid players. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So just to make sure that we are all on the same page about tier 3, basically in Naxx, if you don't know, which you should already know, but just in case you don't know, bosses drop tokens that can then be turned in, along with some other materials, for the appropriate pieces. So you have tokens for legs, chests, helm, etc. And they are all shared between different classes. In the case that we are going to be talking about today, it's druids, hunters, and then paladins or shamans. Obviously, depending on if you play Horde or Alliance. And I am a strong believer that you should be handing out those tier 3 tokens to the classes that will benefit the raid the most at first, rather than giving it to anybody else. And, I mean, in this case here, you might say, well, of course, you're advocating for this because you're a Paladin player, and you want all of your tier 3 before anybody else. Which, absolutely, is definitely true, but at the same time, I am benefiting the whole raid with my tier 3, and that's the whole point here. If you help the snowball effect as soon as you can, well, you will make the raid much smoother from the get-go, and then everything will be easier and easier, and so in this case, druids and hunters will be able to receive their gear more easily afterwards. If you're funneling all of the tier 3 pieces to classes that only benefit themselves and nobody else in the raid, well, I don't think that's necessarily the way to go, but that's only my 2 cents on the situation. So let's take a quick look at the set bonuses of all of these classes, and that will help you see what I mean. So if we start with the hunter pieces, well, they are actually very cool, and the set bonuses as well, but they only benefit the player and its pet and nobody else, which is kind of a problem when you compare it to the other bonuses from the other classes. When we take a look at the druid bonuses, for example, well, we can clearly see here that the 2 set bonus is actually really strong because it will benefit the whole raid. And since it can proc from any rank of rejuve, well, it allows for a much more flexible playstyle. You don't have to absolutely use the rank 1 or the max rank. And that will increase your raid's damage and healing output and threat if you are talking about the tanks. Just make sure though that you leave out buff slots for a rejuve tick and possibly a regrowth as well, because restore druids might consider the 6-piece bonus, and you don't want your world buffs to be pushed off because you didn't prepare accordingly. You know, most people are probably not going to be able to keep all of their world buffs for a long time in Naxxramas, especially at first, but at least if you can prevent losing them while you're still alive, you're gonna be in a much better situation, because let me tell you that it's quite frustrating. And now this is where the fun actually begins. So if we compare the Paladin and the Shaman set bonuses, we see that, you know, they have some specific classes bonus that are very good, and we also see that their 6-piece bonus is pretty much the same, just with some class flavor. And if we just look at it like that, well, it doesn't give us a lot of information, like what is this holy or totemic power, so we have to dig a little deeper to discover this hidden gem. So if we take a look here on Wowhead, it shows us what each class is getting from the buff. So basically, casters are getting a buff that is better than 2 greater arcanes stacked up together, healers, a buff that is better than 2 mage bloods stacked up together, rogues and hunters, they get a mini Ani buff. So with the changes that come when phase 6 with world buffs now being able to benefit hunters as well, they're going to be in love with that, and 140 attack power is the exact same amount that you get from Ani, so very strong. And warriors only get 700 increased armor for 8 seconds. Very good for tanks obviously, but let's just say it bluntly, DPS are absolutely cucked. If you're Fury, well, it kind of sucks for you. It especially sucks to come such a long way just to not being able to benefit from such a amazing 6-piece bonus. But let me tell you that when you start getting a Mace of Minithil or other very good items in Naxxramas, you know, it's not going to be too bad for you nonetheless. And the beauty of this bonus that you give your allies is that it can be procced from any rank of Holy Light, Flash of Light, Healing Wave, and Lesser Healing Wave, which is why down-ranking your spells is going to make you an absolute god. So even if you're still low on mana and you are only using your rank 1 spells, you can still proc those insane bonuses. And add to that the totem or the Libram that you can get in Naxxramas, and you will be in business, my friend. I don't know about the Shaman totem, but the Libram of Light is actually still very good in TBC, so if you're planning on playing Holy in TBC, definitely don't let it slip away. The only thing that isn't quite sure yet, though, is the actual proc rate of the buff. From what I saw during my research, it should be between 5 to 10%, which doesn't seem all that good, but if we do the math, it's actually quite good. So let's do that quickly, and let's consider that we are perfectly spamming a 1.5 second cast on the same target repeatedly for the whole duration. So 5% is 1 in 20, right? So it's 1 cast every 20 flashes of light, if, for example, we're a paladin, and that turns into 1 proc every 30 seconds, because 20 casts of 1.5 seconds is 30 seconds. So that's 2 procs of 8 seconds per minute, which turns into 16 seconds of uptime every 60 seconds. So that translates into 26.6% uptime, so even if we round it down to 25%, it is still very good. Now, what's very amazing is that if the proc rate is closer to 10%, let's say, well, it can go up to 53% of uptime, which is absolutely crazy considering the buff that you give your allies. Now, hopefully what they meant was not the uptime is actually 5 to 10%, because then you would see that it would be a lot less interesting. But I have faith that they actually meant the proc rate and it's gonna work that way. But let's not get too excited too soon. We will have to see when the real thing is out and when Naxxramas is finally here, and when we're gonna actually be able to get our hands on those pieces of gear. But that also doesn't mean that the whole raid will benefit from such a high uptime across the board all the time, obviously, as it would need tens and tens of shamans or paladins to make it a possibility, and that's not realistic. You're most likely not going to spam the same target continuously day and night, unless you are specifically asked to do so. You're more than likely going to be switching targets to heal other people, use other spells, and reposition yourself during the fight, so it's not going to be, if it looks good to say 53% uptime, but it's not necessarily going to be that high in practice. But I think it's still interesting nonetheless to play with the numbers to see how far you could actually push that such a good buff. Lastly, we will discuss what pieces should you be looking for. Should you go for the full set? Only 8 pieces, because there are 9 in total, but you only need 8 for the full set bonus, or stop at 6 pieces. Well, as you know, I don't play a shaman, so I can't say anything for sure, but from what I know and I've seen, they are extremely mana hungry, so the 2 and 4 set bonuses are actually going to make them happy. I'm quite sure about that. And I also doubt that other pieces of gear are actually going to be better and outweigh the 8-piece bonus that gives you 15 MP5 whenever you have Lightning Shield on, but I could be wrong. In terms of what pieces is good and whatnot, they all have the same stats, so Intellect, Stam, Healing Power, and MP5, so I would assume that you would want the biggest pieces first as much as possible if you don't go for the full set, so the helm, the shoulders, the chest, the legs, and the feet. Obviously, refer to your class Discord or Melderon on YouTube. He probably already has made a video on it or will soon, and he's very knowledgeable about the Shaman class, so definitely check him out for anything Shaman related. And for Paladin, your tier 3 is amazing, there's no doubt about it. I mean, the 2-piece bonus is not bad, I guess. The 4-piece is actually super good, because with the talent, your lay on hands is going to have a 28-minute cooldown, so kind of awesome to have the whole cooldown reduced by more than half when you have the tier and the talents. And obviously that's super cool, you can use it more often, and with the talents you give 30% increased armor, very cool for 2 minutes, but still very cool. The 6-piece is godlike, as we've just discussed, and the full set bonus is also worth getting, definitely. For my playstyle, it actually fits right in. I'm already heavily focusing on dispels in the raid, so the poisons and EQ, the debuffs on Chromag, etc. I'm on it basically every time, so giving my dispel the ability to heal is actually insane on top of removing debuffs. And then in PvP, a small instant cast heal every time you dispel something is actually ridiculous. And if you are ever in a position where you need to prioritize certain pieces over others, make sure you do prioritize the helm, the chest, the shoulders, the legs, and the feet, as these have first of all a high healing power and 1% crit on them, making them the actual best pieces you can get. The others are quite good as well, but you'll mostly pick them up for the set bonuses. And if you ever had to eliminate one piece of gear to only keep 8 for the set bonus, well, you could probably drop the ring from KT, because I don't know what's your loot system in your guild, but if, for example, you only have one reserve on KT because everybody's gonna want gear from him, well, definitely go for the mace or the shield or something better than your tier 3 ring, if you know what I mean. I will probably go personally for the full set, just to say that I eventually got it all, but I'll have my eyes, just like anybody else, on other KT gear, so we'll see how that turns out. So that's going to be it for today's video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I hope I made the situation clear on why is it important to prioritize your paladins and shamans on their tier 3 so that they can benefit the whole raid. And I hope that you're also ready for Naxxramas. But before we leave, let's just quickly go over what you will need. So make sure you are attuned. The attunement NPC is already out before the patch actually is here. So make sure you are ready, because when everybody's going to be in EPL, it's not the time to get griefed. Make sure your consumes are ready. Make sure you have enough flasks for the first week, at least 4, 5, 6. You'll know how much you need, but make sure you have more than enough. Make sure you get your Argent on Tower during the Scourge Invasion. Most servers that have very competitive guilds are probably going to have a very short invasion, so don't focus too much on the actual consumables. It's nice if you can get some, it's even better if you can get a lot, but it might not be the case for most people. Make sure you have your tier 3 materials if applicable. Obviously, if you're Prot or Red Paladin, you don't need that. Make sure you also have one extra Arcanite bar and a blue sapphire for your frost resistance ring that you get in Naxxramas. There's a quest that starts from an NPC inside the Citadel. Make sure you have your frost resistance gear. A very nice and easy trinket to get is your AV trinket, so don't forget that one. Make sure your guild is set with repair bots, because there's going to be a lot of gold going into repairing your gear. Make sure the bros are ready. You have your best behavior and some snacks, because you will be in for a long ride, but definitely a good one. So that's all. Take care of yourself, guys, and we'll see you soon. And as always, stay blessed.